Okay, so chapter 6, we're finally starting to integrate all the principles of communication, which, and somebody already talked about, Amanda did, the principles, right? Be aware of yourself and others, be aware of verbal messages, nonverbal messages, listening and responding, and adapting to others. So now we're going to take them to the different contexts, which are the following chapters. Chapter 6 is the beginning of the context of interpersonal. So that's what we're talking about. How do you relate to people interpersonally? How do those 5 principles that we just finished talking about and learning about, how can we integrate those to be more effective at work? Now, in the chapter, it talks about the way that we lead. What is our emphasis as far as problem solving, getting things done, being effective at work? And so the book talks about 2 different types of leaders. There's a type of leader that's person-focused, and there's a type of leader that's task-focused. And they're each on 2 ends of a continuum, right? Just like on a scale of good to bad or right to wrong or whatever. But on this continuum, it's not saying being person-focused or being task-focused is the best way or the only way. It's saying as leaders or as communicators, we will fall somewhere on there in what we believe is important. Is it more important that relationships and people are getting along, or is it more important that we're getting the job done? Okay. Now, everybody will have a different opinion on that depending on their level of where they're at their work. So when we're talking about a person-focused leader, they value on people at the personal level. So they care about making sure everybody's getting along, they make sure everybody's happy, that there's minimal conflicts, that resolutions are made so that people can be effective at their job. They will kind of, in a good way, be in people's business, so to speak. They'll know about their families, their friends, their problems, things like that. And there's some people that are very involved, and then there's some people that aren't involved at all. And when you go to work, it's just about getting your job done. Did you do X, Y, and Z on the list by the specific deadline? And that's all they care about, regardless of what may be going on in your personal life. And that's what we call task-focused leaders. Now, again, I want to say that, it's neither good nor bad to be one or the other. But an effective leader, a competent communicator, a competent leader is going to be sensitive to both of those aspects, because when people are having personal problems, it's going to leak into their job performance. And so one really does have issue with the other. So as a leader, you want to make sure and be aware of what's going on with your employees, but not so much to the fact that you excuse their behavior that's not appropriate for organizations. So again, as a leader, you have to kind of look at the fine line. And you have to figure out ways to help not only the customers, but your coworkers and other people that you work with overcome their struggles so that they can be more productive at work. Because bottom line is, we are in business to make money and get the job done. So if we're too busy bogged down on people's problems, we can't even worry about getting the job done. So that's what this chapter is focusing on. How do we know what those relationships are like, and then how can we help people overcome conflict? Now, the book talks about the 5 types of messages that generally flow from managers to employees. Now, in the previous chapters, I probably think it was in chapter 1 or 2, we talked about upward, downward, horizontal communication. When we're talking about communication from managers to employees, what kind of communication is that?
Can you repeat it?
From managers to employees, how does the communication flow? Upward, downward, horizontal? Downward, right? So it's people that are in charge giving that communication to people that are below them. And think about, as a manager, if you were a manager, but even as an instructor, what kind of messages do we give out to our students? And as a manager, what kind of instructions or communication do you have to your employees? Job instructions, so information about how to perform the job. You need to know that as an employee, you might not know the ropes and the rules going in. So you need that manager to kind of give you that structure so you'll know what you can and can't do. Job rationale talks about why certain things are important. Because if they tell you, let's say you're working on a construction site, you have to wear a hard hat, you have to wear steel-toe shoes, you have to wear appropriate clothing. But if you don't know why, you're not likely to follow those rules. So if you know that it's a safety precaution because you might get your finger chopped off or you might get your leg broken if something falls on you, if you have that rationale, you're more likely to go along with it. Can you imagine, think of our parents, when they used to tell us, you have to do this and you have to do that, and when we say why, they say, because I said so. Well, sometimes that wasn't a good enough reason for us, but when they sat down with us, hopefully, and they gave you the rationale why they wanted you to do certain things, you were more, and if you agreed to it or you thought it was, kind of it's an understandable request that they're making, you're more willing to follow that request. So that rationale is really important, and a lot of times as employers, or even as parents, or even as teachers, we just say, do it because I said so. Well, nobody likes to be bullied, and nobody likes to be told what to do. If we treat people as equals, and we can explain to them why something is important, they're more likely to take that responsibility on and follow it as their own. Policy and procedures is another one. Information about the company practices and benefits. You want to know what the perks are to the company that you're working for. You want to know when holidays are. You want to know, what time you have to be at work. All of those things so that you can be productive in your job. Because ultimately, we are working to be compensated in one way, shape, or form. So you want to know what are all those ways that you're being compensated. And whether or not that's health benefits, whether or not it's sick day. How would you, if you never knew you had a sick day policy, and you were sick, and you really couldn't come into work, but you thought, I can't miss. If you knew about that sick day policy, you're more likely to be informed, and you can be more effective at your job. Same thing with holidays, same things with time off, things like that. You want to be aware of that. And the only people that know that are the people that work there, and your managers should be the most informed about that. And then the last one is for, the fourth one is feedback. Information and performance. A lot of times, your managers are in charge of you making sure you are doing your job and making sure you're doing it effectively. And so they'll be the ones to pat you on the back and say good job, or they'll be the ones to point out areas of weakness so that you can improve. Think about this relationship in the instructor-student setting. You need me to tell you where you're not understanding topics, where you need a little bit of help of reading, some things that are important, so that you're not just kind of doing it all by yourself. You need that guidance, and that's what that feedback is for. Just like we did on the test, you needed to know where you missed, so that way you'll know where you improve the next time. And then finally, the motivation. And this is information about the organization's mission. So what is the ultimate goal? Why are you there? A lot of times, you are the face of the company. You're representing everything that they stand for. And if you don't know what their mission statement is, if you don't know what they're about, how can you accurately represent that organization? And you might accidentally say things that are not consistent with the mission goals of the organization. So your managers need to be able to effectively communicate those things to you so that you can be a good reflection of your company. Okay?